Who are you texting? Where are you going? You're only saying this because you hate me. Are you really going to go out wearing that? You can't see them anymore. This is I Testify, Conversation Station. Our quote of the day is ignoring the signs is a good way to end up in the wrong direction. Hey guys, it's your host. I'm Lauren, and I am joined today by two intelligent, beautiful ladies, and we're going to be talking on the topic red flags, the power of walking away. So first I'm going to intro, we have the lovely Miss Alvea Hurlington, who is the president of the Adventist Christian Fellowship Mustard Seed Chapter in downtown Toronto. How are you, Alvea?
Oh, I'm doing great, Lauren. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you for coming. And then I'm also joined by Miss Kimberly Samaru, who is busy working super hard to obtain her master's. How are you doing, Kim?
Hi, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be with you, lovely ladies.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of go right into it. We're going to start the conversation by kind of talking about the what. So not necessarily examples yet, but we want to get a kind of an idea of what is the definition of a red flag. So Alvea, I'll open the floor up to you to start with. Can you kind of in your own words, give us a little definition of a red flag, the meaning?
I would say that in its simplest form, I think that a red flag is a warning sign. It's something maybe non-negotiable or something that is a misunderstanding, but red flags always require taking a moment, having honest conversation, reevaluating. And I think that red flags, they have to do with our values and our core values, especially our priorities. And often they can feel like they're attacking those things. So important to keep watch for red flags.
Wow. Yeah, no, thank you. I'm glad that you brought up a warning sign, because when I actually decided to just kind of Google the definition, it gives you kind of an example of beachgoers. You should remember if the red flag is in the air, there's danger maybe in the area. So that is a warning. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And Kim, do you have anything you'd like to add kind of for like a definition in your own words?
Yeah, thank you. I would definitely associate a red flag with danger. As you stated previously, I see a red light at a stop sign, or so definitely like a sign or a pre-warning to stop. And so to me, that definitely would be associated with danger.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we have it figured out, it's that basic, everyone kind of knows, it's almost a universal language. When you see red, stop. There's something that's coming. There's something that might be, you need to proceed with caution, or you need to stop because something dangerous or could be up ahead. So now that we've kind of just talked about what exactly that definition is, I want to talk about kind of what relationships you can find red flags in. I think that there is a stereotype that it can only be in that romantic level. That's where you hear a lot about red flags in conversations that are brought up about the topic. But let's kind of scope deeper and see if there's different relationships that we can find red flags. So if either of you would like to bring up a relationship you think could be found in, definitely the floor is open.
I think that a red flag can be found in a lot of friendships as well as family relationships. So for me, I associate a red flag in a friendship if it's one-sided, or if you're feeling burnt out, if someone doesn't push you to be the best version of yourself, and if someone's holding you back. So typically that can be associated as well you can see that in family relationships, people who don't support you, and creating that safe space if they're not part of that space.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the family relationship, it might be a little bit tricky, I think, for some people, but it is something that we should be aware of, just looking at the little things, and know that just because it's family context, there can be dangerous and warning signs that you should be aware of. Alvea, can you think of any other relationships?
I definitely think that on the family side of things, we put up with more red flags than we should. When it comes to parents and parent relationships, especially parent relationship with teenage and adult children, there have to be some boundaries that are drawn, and red flags often pop up, and sometimes we don't even know how to address them. It's a really complicated space, but red flags certainly exist in familial relationships as well.
Yeah, no, definitely familial. I thank you for bringing up that point, Alvea. We do. We proceed it with more caution than we might another relationship because they're our family. We might tolerate more from them, but I don't think that's necessarily something that needs to be put into our minds that is something we should have to put up with. I also wanted to bring up friendships. I think that friendships, there can be toxic friendships and there can be warning signs, those red flags in the beginning or even in a long-term friendship that can develop and you can realize maybe this person isn't a healthy person for me to be around. Maybe whether it's them not supporting you or maybe supporting you to go into a wrong direction. So family relationships, parental relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. We're going to, I think, have a focus on the romantic aspect, but I definitely just wanted to bring to light that, red flags can be found in any relationship. And so now we've kind of just established, we know what it is. We know it could be found in any relationship where there's two people at least having some sort of involvement at a intimate level. I'm going to kind of dive into some examples. And how I want to go about this round, I can start off just talking about, maybe you can each give one or two examples of what we think a red flag looks like, or an example of a red flag. So the one I'm going to start with can definitely apply to both a friendship, a romantic relationship, or a familial relationship. And that is someone who puts a wedge in between you and, actually backtrack. This is actually more for a romantic and a friendship level, but this is someone who puts a wedge between you and your family. So if you have a friend or a partner who is kind of tugging you away from your family, saying, oh, why do we have to go to this event all the time? Why are you always talking to your family? I don't really like Aunt so-and-so. I don't like your mom. I don't like, it's just things like that. These kind of little things that seem like, well, not everybody likes everybody, but it seems like they're slowly and surely tugging you away from something that you find security in. I do think that's a big warning sign that maybe this person doesn't have the best intentions. So I don't know if anybody wants to elaborate on that, kind of like that driving wedge between you and a family, or even you and a best friend, like someone that's really important to you.
Well, certainly with family members, you have a relationship with them already. They know some of the things that you like, you dislike. They know some of your habits, and they can stay on top of that. When you have someone who's trying to drive a wedge between you and those people, you have to really wonder if they have your best interests at heart. Now, that doesn't mean disagreeing. There are people who spend too much time with their family and people who really do have toxic family members that a partner might not want to be around. But I think that should always be phrased as a conversation. I think especially when it comes to these family member discussions, nothing should be, we're not hanging out with that person, you're not seeing that person. Those are toxic. Those are red flags for sure.
Yeah, I agree with Alvea. I believe that someone who puts you down is someone who would be giving you red flags. That can be in your family setting, your friend setting, and your romantic setting. And so being someone who's planning to go into childcare, I really am a supporter of praise and being able to respect others and setting those boundaries. So I am a firm believer that someone who puts you down doesn't make you the best version of yourself or help support that in establishing that healthy relationship.
I think that one other thing about red flags in romantic relationships especially is you can tell a lot of red flags or even green flags from the way that you argue. Now, there always are going to be discussions. There are always going to be arguments in relationships. That's natural. That's normal. We disagree. So what? But how does that play out? Is there a respectful tone all throughout? When someone says something that maybe they didn't mean to say, do they take the time to say that they're sorry and really a deep apology, a genuine apology? Are they able to be aware if things are escalating out of hand and put a pause to that? Do they know when it's time for them to say, you know what, I'm going to step away from the situation a little bit and we can come back together? Or is there a lot of negativity, a lot of shaming, manipulation, hurtful language? That matters a lot, and those are all red flags.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Alvea, for bringing that up. And that actually makes me want to turn to a verse in the Bible from the book that's called Proverbs. And it's Proverbs 17, verse 27. And it just goes as follows: a truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. And that is, it's powerful because, of course, arguments are going to come up in any relationship. That's very natural. But it's how, like Alvea said, it's how you're arguing. If somebody is overpowering you, cutting you off, raising their voice, or even if they're not raising their voice, if they just don't even let you get a word in while you're trying to have this conversation, that is not healthy, and that is a red flag. So I'm glad that you were able to bring that up, Alvea. I don't know, Kim, if you want to add anything into that as well.
Yeah. So honestly, I believe that manipulation you can sometimes see these red flags, but you choose to ignore it. Sorry. You choose to ignore it because manipulation is so easy to kind of try and see the best in people. And sometimes when you're constantly in that cycle of red flags, you believe that you start to forget and you start to make excuses for that person, right? And so that being said, it's easy to ignore those signs. So I do agree with what both of you are saying.
Kimberly, that's such a great thing you brought up, and it kind of leads me to an example, a story in my own personal life. I've been in some negative relationships in my past, and there was one relationship where I met someone at a really low point in their life. So they were going through a lot of stuff. They were unhappy with their circumstances. And so one of the first times that they called me names and they were extremely rude, disrespectful, I was like, and then they were like, oh, it's just a joke. I was having a bad day. I brushed it off. I said, you know what? Fine. You're going through a lot. I totally understand. It was really easy to turn a blind eye in that moment, but over time, that behavior led to a really verbally toxic relationship. It was filled with a lot of blaming and a lot of manipulative language, a lot of shaming. And so you just have to be aware and address that red flag from early on, because dismissing unkind behavior might have some really bad consequences later on.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing that, Alvea. I appreciate your response.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Alvea. And it's true. Sometimes when someone else is maybe at a lower point in their life, we might feel the obligation to almost take what they're giving and kind of putting on us. But, that is a red flag. When you're in a relationship, whether it's at the romantic level or just a friendship level, you shouldn't be the punching bag for somebody. You should be able to be someone that could be their support system for sure, but it shouldn't feel like you're taking the blow with each thing that comes from them. You shouldn't feel that you're being hurt by them because they're at a lower point in their life. So thank you so much for that vulnerability, Alvea. Just another example I wanted to talk about was demanding to see your phone. So this is kind of at the romantic level. Last week, we actually talked about trying to stay off of our phones. But at this level, I wanted to talk about that being a red flag, because I know I've had friends who have said their partner had requested that they go through their phone whenever they want. And, I think it's a personal decision whether or not you feel obligated to allow your partner to have 100% access to your device. But I think that should be a personal decision that you make. It shouldn't be an obligation. Your phone is your property. It could have private things that it's between you and yourself, and you're not necessarily ready to open up that part of yourself to your partner. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that. Do we think that is a serious thing, or is that kind of like, oh, whatever, it's just my phone?
Yeah. So that is a great question, especially in 2021 with the use of technology. Great example. I think that when I hear someone wanting to go on my phone, I think of trust. I think, well, why is it that they need to see my phone? Is there something that I'm hiding? Does it come from insecurity? So I associate that with trust and building trust. And I believe in healthy relationships that it is important to build trust. So I shouldn't need to see my partner's phone because I'm insecure. If they run to the bathroom and their phone rings and it's their mom or someone that it's their family member or their friend, like, okay, maybe set those boundaries before, I know I can answer it, it's fine. But in terms of going on their phone and checking their personal messages and like photos and memos, like I believe that trust is really important, an important foundation in any relationship. And I hold trust very, very closely in my relationship with God. And so for me, I really do believe that in terms of using someone's phone, I think that your motives behind it need to be pure, right? You need to be able to know, like, am I letting my partner have my password in case there's an emergency and they need to contact someone? Like, what is your motives, as well as building trust and a foundation? Is it healthy?
Trust is a huge part of that question that you asked, Lauren, but also I would say that boundary element. I mean, we're in a world where every conversation we have, there's record of it, and that's crazy. But historically, if you think about it, your partner wouldn't necessarily be there for every conversation you ever have with anyone. They might not ever see some of the interactions you have. And that was okay, because those boundaries meant that you have your friends and you have your family and you share what you want from that. And when it comes to reading through those messages or looking through those pictures on your phone, that can be not just a huge invasion of privacy, but it can be someone's way of finding ways to manipulate you. And I think that's a really dangerous territory we can wander into. Certainly, you can share your device and they can have your password or maybe even access to your social media. But there has to be a moment where you say, I have my friends and I have a conversation with them that might not be any of your business, even if I'm not hiding anything from you. And I think that is a really important boundary to set about privacy and about one's personal choices.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too is once you get into that cycle of insecurities and constant doubt, then it starts to create that healthy relationship with your partner. So one day your partner says, no, I don't want to show you my phone. And how are you going to react? How are they going to react? Right. So it's really about setting those healthy boundaries and trusting in your partner and believing that your relationship is stronger and you have a foundation that is built on love and trust and forgiveness. And so I really do believe and agree with what you're saying, Alvea.
Wow, thank you guys. So the last kind of little example of a red flag I'm going to bring up, it's kind of also going to be a segue into kind of the why it's important to recognize these red flags, is the red flag of someone hurting your self-worth. So it can start off I think examples can start off very small, whether it's them saying, maybe we should get a gym membership together after you're complaining about not feeling your best. And that may sound actually very helpful, but I think it's about understanding the mindset that person is in at the time of suggesting getting a gym membership. I know that I've read lots of stories. I think for women, especially, weight can be a very sensitive topic. And when you're with someone that is supposed to be your support, your person that loves you and wants the best for you, if you're at a really low point in your self-esteem when it comes to something like your weight, for them to maybe suggest, well, why don't you just go to the gym? Might not be the most helpful. And I do think it might be the segue into that danger zone, because it could turn into them saying, you're really fat and I don't really want to be with you right now. I'm not attracted to you right now. Da, 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 da. And that is really dangerous for our self-worth. And God wants us to have such value in our self-worth. So I kind of want to talk about that, whether it doesn't matter what aspect of the self-esteem your partner is trying to target. I just want to kind of open up the floor to discuss the dangers and why it's a red flag when someone is having a constant attitude towards your appearance or just who you are as a person.
That is a good question. And it gave me goosebumps, actually, because it reminded me of a situation in my own romantic relationships in the past. There was one situation where I had never really been conscious or off my weight or my body, but someone who I thought I loved or I claimed I loved had told me about my body and told me that I should consider going to the gym and that I wasn't as skinny. And so for me, even though it was a small comment, actions really do speak louder than words, and I could see the way that they would look at me, and it just made me feel like I wasn't worthy. And someone who loves you and supports you should not make you feel that way. And honestly, although I am not in a relationship with that person anymore, to this day, like I still struggle with, sometimes I look at myself, and you look at yourself in the mirror, and obviously this is a very vulnerable situation, but I think that it's a personal struggle that a lot of people really struggle with. And so it just goes to show being mindful and really showing God's love. Like, was that a loving thing to say? Was that out of God's love? No, because that was not God. Your body is a temple, and God created me, and I am unique, and I am beautiful just the way I am. And it is so empowering to be able to have this conversation with such strong women like both of you, and being able to share our personal experiences. And so I really did struggle with my body and the way I looked after that, and that itself was a red flag, which is I chose to ignore. And I chose to think, you know what, I'm going to start working out. I started working out, and I felt horrible after working out. And I was like, well, I should feel good after working out. But I realized that I was feeling horrible because I was doing it to please someone else. Now I can say that when I work out or I go for a jog, I try to do it for myself because I deserve to feel healthy and feel beautiful in my own body. And so if working out is going to make me healthy, then I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it to use it as validation for my body, for being skinny enough to meet the requirement of my partner's needs. Instead, I'm going to do it for me. And so I really do think that creating that positive environment, having people who support you, like you said, Lauren, like I love to work out with friends. I love to go to the gym. I love with my friends. And so finding those healthy support groups are really important, people who can push and motivate you. And so I do think the way you word things really does affect people. I do think even if you think it's just a small comment or a small joke, it goes a long way. And so it really does affect, like this relationship was over a year ago. And sometimes when I still try and close, I look at myself in the mirror and I think, wow, like you start to question your worth and if you're good enough. And the reality is we are good enough, and all of our bodies and different shapes and sizes that we are God's creation, and we are beautiful. So that is something that really does stand out to me. And I'm a big advocate, especially in the work and the program that I am in, community engagement and social justice, being able to fight for women's empowerment and making sure that women all over the globe are empowered and feel strong and healthy as the person that they are today. And so I take my past experience as an opportunity for growth and to mold me into the strong person so that I can motivate other young women, as well as share that story with other women who are facing the societal pressures of meeting the needs of those models of Instagram, or those negative comments and connotations around our body image. And I can use that story to help motivate them and push them to, once they're happy with themselves, that's all that matters. And to be able to set those clear boundaries so they can create an environment with their partner where they feel beautiful for themselves and they love themselves enough that it doesn't matter what the people around them say, and that they have a partner who does support them despite whatever they look like or feel like.
For sure. If I could step in here, this red flag that you're talking about here, it's a huge one. Anything that is impacting your self-esteem, making you feel lesser, there should be no room for that inside a relationship. And an innocent sounding comment such as, you should fix the way you do your hair, or you should try this, that when it's repetitive, I think is something that needs to be taken note of. You know, even your family might say to you, you should maybe wear less lipstick or something like that. Something that is really innocent sounding, but if they say it every day over and over again with increasing harm, and they send you a picture of what somebody else looks like, and then they show you a TV show, they pointed out one moment when they like that, you should look like that. Then when it becomes repetitive, I think is when it becomes toxic, and that's a huge red flag. Lauren, can I speak on one more red flag that?
Absolutely. Of course. Go ahead.
There's just one that I think is really meaningful in our life right now. We know that people have mental health challenges, and when they come into a relationship, they bring those mental health challenges with them. They might have chronic depression, they might have trauma from previous experiences, and it's really easy to say anybody who has a bad past, X, red flag. But what I would love instead, that sure, that's a red flag, that's a warning. But I think the bigger red flag is this person willing to do the professional support? You can be in a relationship with someone while they're doing counseling. You can say something to them like, hey, it sounds like you're really having a bad day. This isn't something I can handle. I'm not your therapist. But why don't you go and talk to the person that you already have in your support group who can help you with that? If someone is unwilling to get support or unwilling to do that work on themselves in a professional way, in a spiritual way and a very dedicated, committed way, then that I would say is a huge red flag.
Wow.
Alvea, I agree. That is a wonderful point, because being someone who does struggle with anxiety and anxieties around school and all those little things, constant worry, I have had relationships where they have said, when I do bring up something that bothers me or something that is a concern, it's just your anxiety. Oh, and so being condescending and belittling and using your mental health as a reason as to why your feelings are not valid, it's an extreme red flag. And then eventually, after hearing it repetitively, like you said, you start to believe, well, you know what? It is my anxiety. You're right. Don't even worry about it. And so you start to find yourself advocating for your partner who is bringing you down and demeaning you. And so it is a constant unhealthy cycle. And so I do appreciate you bringing up the struggles around mental health and the stigma. And so I really do believe that I am someone who did say, oh, like, I don't want to be with a partner who has this and that and that. And you start to realize, well, we're not perfect. We're all human. And so you start to realize what true love looks like and the importance of loving people despite their differences and accepting everyone the way that they are. And so that you can build those healthy relationships, even in romantic levels.
Wow. Thank you guys both so much for just the examples you brought up and just the powerful messaging in both of those. And so now, we've talked about the serious dangers of these red flags. So I want to talk about, just kind of to end the segment, a little bit more of a positive note, but why? Why should you walk away from these situations? What will it do for you as a person? Will it make you a stronger person, or will it actually hurt you? Is there a power in walking away? So I'm just going to open up the floor to kind of that why. Why should you walk away?
That's good. That is a very good question. For me, I believe that you should walk away because you are strong, because you are empowered. And when you trust in your faith and you trust in the Lord and you lean on Him rather than your broken relationships or the red flags, you find peace and comfort, and you're able to rebuild that strength. It is never easy when someone makes you feel less of yourself, and it's very difficult to walk away. You have those doubts, you have those fears, and you know what? You need to place them on the Lord. You need to place them in a place of healing and trust that you are not alone. You need to surround yourself around that support group, seek resources if need be. You need to know what's available for you. And so I really do think that you walk away because you are loved and because God loves you and He wants the best for you. And the best for you is not to be in a situation or to be in a relationship where there are red flags. And so for me, one of my past relationships, they didn't want to come to church with me, and that is okay. But and you know what? That's okay. If you're not feeling well, you're having a bad day, you want to look at an online service, that is okay with me. But if you're saying, oh, I don't want to go to church with you, oh, we have church today, like that is a red flag. And walking away not only strengthened my relationship with God, but it gave me the opportunity to rebuild my faith and grow into the person I am today. And so walking away is really taking a leap in faith and strengthening your ability and your growth. And it really does mold you into a person of love and a stronger individual.
Thank you.
I just want to say that no matter what the red flag is, no matter what the relationship, and no matter what altercations happen, maybe you've given yourself physically more than you initially wanted to. Maybe you have said some mean things too. Maybe you're also struggling with your mental health or struggling with your self-esteem to begin with. No matter what, you're not responsible for anybody else's actions. You're not responsible for anyone else's behavior. You might think you've gotten yourself in too deep, but you can't actually let shame hold you back because it's not your fault if someone else is exhibiting red flags towards you. They can work on themselves, sure, but that's not your responsibility to deal with. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're safe, to recommend support to that person, to support them, but that might look like supporting them from a distance or supporting them by stepping out of that relationship. There's such good news in knowing that God loves us, and there's nothing we can do in this entire world to make Him love us more. He created us. We can't make Him love us more, but we also can't make Him love us any less. And that is so encouraging, no matter what situation you're in, no matter what red flags you're experiencing, no matter what toxicity you're dealing with or what abuse you've been taking, you have the power to step away from that because you have a God who loves you endlessly.
Yeah. And I believe that's so beautiful because during a pandemic, a global pandemic, COVID-19, it is so easy to feel isolated and to feel alone and to feel that you need to stay in these unsecure red flag relationships. And so being able to set those boundaries and saying, God, like, what is my purpose? What is my worth? And realizing that your relationship with God, no one can take that away from you. And so you have the ability and the strength to grow with that relationship and to use that relationship as a foundation for your healthy future relationships that include romantic relationships, that include those family relationships and those friendship relationships. So if, knowing that you're not alone is extremely, extremely important, especially during this time, COVID-19 pandemic, where you can feel alone in this online world.
Well, thank you guys so much. I think you both wrapped it up beautifully. I'm going to wrap it up. Actually, both your comments really wrap into this verse on the why you should leave. And it's Genesis 1, verse 27. And it kind of goes as follows. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And I think that just goes to show why you want to leave, because God created you as a unique, beautiful individual who deserves to have a healthy, happy relationship. God wants you to be happy. And to use the VeggieTale quote, if you're familiar with it, God made you special and he loves you very much. And that's what it sums up. That's what it kind of sums down to. Jeremiah 29:11, God knows the plans that he has for you. He wants you to prosper. He wants you to have a future. So he wants you to be aware of those signs. Alvea and Kim, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me. It was a great discussion. And for all of you guys listening and watching right now, if you enjoyed this content and look forward to hearing more content like this, please subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like and comment, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.